Hello, I'm Walt Bartman. I'm the founder director of the Yellow Barn Studio, and we've been doing instructor interviews so that if you're going to be a student of one of these instructors, will have an opportunity to come and understand what they're about and to see their work and see them discuss their work. Today, we have a really outstanding painter with us, Holly Buehler. And Holly has been teaching, at the Yellow Barn, and she teaches color theory, and she's teaching on location landscape painting, and she's, I guess, done. Did you do some drawing, Holly?
Um,
I'm not sure.
I draw within the class.
Okay, so
It's mainly still life, for the color mixing class.
okay, well, just to introduce Holly, the reason I'm asking her is because
Mhm.
I'm not exactly sure what she's taught here recently, but I can tell you that if you, as a student, want to really learn color, one of the reasons why I hired Holly is because she sees color like no one else, as far as I'm concerned, and I'm really impressed with what she's achieved with her work and her knowledge, being able to pass it on to her students. She's an excellent teacher. So I think, if anything, this is what I can say about Holly. And, it's great to have you, Holly, with us. Maybe you can start telling us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you, Walt. It's great to be with you all. Um, I have a background in commercial art, and but I was always had a passion of loving art and going to the museums, and I took fine art in college, and I have a art history minor. And when I was growing up, I always enjoyed artists in my home. The paintings I saw were like Rembrandt's and Norman Rockwell, but then when I started going to museums, it was always Picasso. And then in college, I went to Chicago. I love I'm from the Midwest, so Chicago was a real eye opener, the Institute of Chicago, and seeing the Water Lilies by Monet and George Seurat's painting. And so those were the paintings I was drawn to. And I was also, I always loved Andrew Wyeth, and I always thought, he was the artist to emulate. But as I, took more classes, I was introduced to people like, de Kooning and Soutine with the meat
Yeah.
paintings. So I'm kind of an expressionist, or, I like making marks, not at all like Andrew Wyeth's marks, more like, I love, like a Francis Bacon painting, which is so different from, an illustrator like Norman Rockwell. So I'm still developing my style, and I love color, and it's come natural to me. And I'm excited about teaching students to have fun with art and painting.
And your background, to go back a little bit further, you did your uh, undergraduate work. Where did you do that?
I went to Eastern Michigan University, a state college,
Mhm.
and or a state university, and I I studied fine art, but computers were coming on the scene back then, in the 80s, and um, I was the young kid that wasn't scared of computers. And then I don't know, my last year of college, I took all graphic design classes because I wasn't going into the teaching realm then, but I wanted a commercial background and thought I'd go into film and animation. And I took animation classes and, um, you know, camera classes, and I got a job at a television station in Detroit, and they had something called Quantel Paintbox. That was before Adobe was on the scene, and I was the one that was pretty super at doing that. And then that job brought me to Washington, D.C., where I got a job on a national show. And then I've always worked behind the scenes in television and post production. I've done commercial work, and you know um, uh, you know, ads for elections and stuff like that. But it kept me very busy all these years. And so the last like 30 years, I've been in television, and I've worked at station that have gotten overall Emmys. So, that was kind of the prize there, working toward getting the Edward R. Murrow Award and stuff like that at the TV stations. But now I'm kind of putting the computer a little more behind, even though I'm proficient at Photoshop and After Effects and things like that, and no Procreate. I enjoy having my hands dirty, full of charcoal and paint, and being expressive on the canvas. So.
Yeah, and one of the things I can tell you is you're a natural. That's for sure. You're teaching. What courses are you teaching at the Yellow Barn?
Right now, I'm teaching color theory and color mixing,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm teaching plein air. I taught a pretty successful plein air class during the fall. I had 10 students. They seemed to really enjoy it, and we went to places all around the DMV. And in the spring, I'll teach a plein air class again. Everything will be in bloom. It'll be beautiful. Mm-hmm. And color mixing again. And I hope, and I think I put in there the dog days of summer, the end of the summer. There's a few of us that don't go to the beach and stuff. I just teaching a 3-day workshop, painting animals or anything you want, and working in the studio. I'm like going to the studio because I think it's easier to see color. And I think it's good to get out of your surroundings and into a place that just totally lets you concentrate on painting. I've had students tell me they just take the class because they want to concentrate on painting and not have any distractions. So that's exactly what it's about. And I set up a nice still life, usually with complementary colors, and so we can work on the color wheel and what works with what. And I try to keep it simple. I know sometimes students, when you put up too much, it just is too much information. So I try to keep it things that relate to each other. So it'll make a nice composition for them.
Yeah. So your development as an artist, okay. Is there anything else that you can tell us as far as your background and that we might want to know? For instance, what's interesting when you shared that Andrew Wyeth, you're so far from Andrew Wyeth.
I know.
Like, I just wonder, I'm just trying to pick your brain to see if there's any.
I know. Well, I think I always used to think to be an artist, you had to paint like Norman Rockwell and have a perfect looking illustration, or Andrew Wyeth with, the motion of Christina's world, and, a figure in the landscape, which is and had a mood. But I know his work is tonal, and I'm not a tonalist at all. But I think as I looked, college probably helped. I got exposed to more. And I think really Chicago was a great place for me to be and see the post-impressionists and the French impressionists, that those always inspired me. I'm drawn to them. And I've taken classes with you, Walt, and I feel, I'm always learning. And I feel like the abstract artists, I'm still developing a love and passion for learning how they create and how they compose. And so you're always learning.
Yeah, and your work, when we get to see your work here, people are going to be really, really surprised at how you see color and all the color that you do see, which I think is one of the things we want to discuss once we look at your paintings. So when we talk about your work, though, what is your work about? Do you think? Is it just about color, or what else do you think your work's about?
I think it's about expression, being free, not contained. I think it's about joy and being festive. I know people have told me that my work makes them happy. My goal wasn't always to set out and do a nice little painting that makes people happy, but it's really a nice side benefit for everybody. You know, I don't do a lot of, um, you know, political type paintings. I think because I was in the news world for so long, I don't want to think about disasters and all that. I just want to think of natural beauty, and um really the painting takes me in another space in my mind. And so I enjoy you know, sharing that with others, especially in the still life class where we do color mixing. I find a lot of those students, they, you know, I put on music in the background, and um you know, I think people have really enjoyed it. You know, they, you know, they're just in tune, and it's quiet. It's Sunday morning right now. I hope to do more classes, but right now I'm kind of focused on the weekends, um, having painting classes.
And
And
that's good though. I mean, there are a lot
mhm,
of people that can't afford the time to take
right.
during the week. So, you know, having a class like yours, and I mean, the truth of it is, it's open to all levels of students. So people don't have a problem starting your class, I would imagine. But there are also people that are taking class more than once, and I think they continue to learn as well. And that's the kind of teacher you are. And from my, the feedback that I gotten about your teaching and that, people are really inspired. All right.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
you do a great job with that. I think um, with your teaching, speak a little bit about you and your relationship to your students.
Well, I know that my students have, I mean, I should have pulled out a couple quotes, like a couple, I've gotten some nice emails from some of the students, but one in particular, she's very accomplished, knows what she's doing. She's taken a lot of classes, but she was really happy to be in my class. She found it very relaxing. And she was involved in helping me do a still set up a still life. I let the students interact with what kind of thing they want. I asked them, what do what do you want to do? Do you want plant flowers next week? Do you want to do, shiny objects? I want their input because it's their class. It's not just my class, it's theirs. And then I have another student, she wanted to try the different mediums. She's a beginner, and every week she brought like watercolor, she brought gouache, she brought oil, she tried acrylic, but I could help her with all of them because I have experience with all of them. And in the end, I think she really grew to love oils, and she was really happy with her work. And then I've had students that just come in and want to finish their paintings, and they didn't really they didn't really care about paying attention to the still life. So I help them, I'm there for them for whatever they want. And it, especially the classes are limited. You can always work with any amount of students within a couple hours, because they're usually 2.5 hours long. But if nobody's after me right away, I'll let them linger as long as they want. And another benefit, there's usually a show going on in the studio. Like the Yellow Barn is split into studio space and a gallery space. There's usually a gallery show going on the weekends, and that's been a real benefit. Like when I would talk about complementary colors or reflections, and we'd go in the studio and the gallery had something that another artist had done, and we'll talk about the art from one of the shows that's.
Yeah, I can see you really enjoy teaching. I met you a few years ago, and I thought you were natural to be a teacher, and I think you've really blossomed as far as I know. I mean, I get the feedback from students, and like I said, they are inspired and they're very enthusiastic. And you're an incredibly sensitive person, in that you really you're concerned about what they need, as well as just giving them just a syllabus and something that they follow. You actually make it flexible, and I think this is one of the things that we want from most of our instructors. I think is to have them realize that we have such a diverse group of artists teaching at the Yellow Barn, and everybody has their way of looking at things, and yours are really quite unique. I think you've won awards and things like that for your work, and that speaks. So what do you think is important for your students to achieve when they study with you?
I'd like them to develop a love for painting. To I usually start the class too with, what are your goals for this class? What do you want to learn or accomplish? And like I've said before, I've had one student, he really wanted to perfect and have input on how he could finish this painting. So, his goal was to finish a certain painting. Another person's goal was to, be introduced to things. In the plein air class, people have known of me. I have won a couple awards, so my name's out there. And they'll say, I really want to learn color. And I hear you're good at color. And I'll tell them, well, why are you just using brown on that tree? Why don't you, introduce, some violets or this or that? And I remember one student come up to me. She goes, I've never put violet in a tree, or something. Like, she smiled.
Yeah.
I think to get a smile out of people is good too, in this serious world we live in. People are enjoying it. We need more things that we enjoy purely, not just from what other people give us. You're making your own joy out of painting.
Mhm.
And
Well,
art.
I can see your passion, and I know that you really transmit that to your students. So we're going to take a look at your work now, okay? And we'll get to know you even more by that as well. So bear with me here, because let's see, we're going to see this presentation. I hope you're seeing the presentation, right?
Yeah, I see all the screen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So here we are, and I think Holly, this is one example of her work. We're going to talk about this in a few minutes, but you can see the color that she works with, but you can also see the paint quality. And I think this is one of the things that I know of you, is how expressive you are with paint. When we talk in terms of rhythm and the dance of the brush and the dance of the eye, I think you bring a lot of that to your work. So I feel that these are attributes that I think you can pass on to your students. And all we have to do is look at, say, this white horse and see how many colors you are able to see. And it just brings back that old quote from Turner, who said, when he was out painting, somebody came up to him and said, I don't see those colors. He said, don't you wish you could? And I think you really, you fit right there with Turner. All right. So this is an award-winning painting of yours. Won the members show, actually, before you were an instructor at the Yellow Barn. And this is how I got to know you. I got to know you from not only us painting on, we went on a number of international trips, I believe, but we also have painted together before. And this particular piece really inspired Harry. Well, first of all, Harry Cooper, who's the head of modern art at the National Gallery, was our judge. So for him to pick a piece of yours as the first place award winner, I think speaks really highly of the elements that you bring to your work. So do you want to discuss this painting a little bit?
Yeah, that's taken from looking at Violet Slock on the C&O Canal in Maryland. I was taking actually a sunset painting class with you, and this was kind of early when I was taking classes in the sunset class. And I went out to the locks looking after a storm, and this scene appeared, and I was really inspired. And I didn't paint it on site. because it was kind of late, but I came home and I painted it right away. I swear it just came out of my brush, and I painted this like in an hour. And I
Yeah.
was really just inspired by the scene. And it's just an 18-inch long, wide painting. But yeah, that was a great honor to get um, talked about by Harry Cooper.
Yeah, but with that interview is also up on our website, our YouTube channel. So anyone who's listening to this lecture can pick up the one on Harry Cooper and has discussion of this particular painting. This painting has so much in it. One of the reasons why I offered you the position at the Yellow Barn, and I knew your background, so I know you weren't coming just being a beginning student. You have had a lot of experience with art over the years, including photography. But this is one of the things about your work is that you are a plein air painter and you paint alla prima, which means you paint usually in one or two settings at the most. And the quality of your work has a lot to do with your paint and how you expressively apply that paint and the feeling that you bring to the work. You want to speak to that?
Well, I know Harry talked about like this painting has like a push and pull to it,
Mhm.
with the clouds coming over. And I, I did use a palette knife, um, which helps with sometimes getting that thick paint down. And, I just saw this scene in my mind and I painted it quickly so I wouldn't forget anything. But
Well, and you're good at that, but the other thing that you're good at is designing and honestly, your color palette as well. I think when I look at your work, I mean, I'm incredibly impressed by the dynamic quality that you bring to the work. All your work has a certain kind of expressive quality that I think really communicates a strong understanding of feeling to the viewer. And that was what Cezanne was about. He said that painting is all about feeling, and I feel that that's something that you bring to the work. And, the authenticity, the fact that you're not manipulating something, that you're really, essentially responding to an incredibly powerful moment, I feel is what this work is about. There's a lot of energy in it as well. So you do bring that to the way you paint. It's really interesting. But that's one of the things we can feel. We can feel movement in your work. So, is there anything else you want to tell us about this painting?
um, I know I've learned with painting that a little color goes a long way. So, having the clouds like a green, blue, and dulled, and it's right after a storm. But then um, the promise of this, the burst of color just brings me joy and excitement in seeing this painting. So,
And you're not working from photos, so I mean, you have to design this as it's happening, right?
um, yeah, I do take photos usually when I'm at places, but this one I kind of remembered everything and just got it on the canvas
Yeah.
right away. If I paint right after I see something, if I don't stay on site, I can remember a lot. But I do like taking photos as a reference, but I don't try to rely on them totally.
Yeah, and there's no photographic reference here for sure. I mean, that's one of the things that I can say about your work. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. And this is one of my favorites of yours. I just enjoy. I know we painted the same subject. We were there that day together as we were painting, and the horses they didn't show up for most of the day. We were out painting, and then when they did show up, they didn't stay that long. But they stayed long enough for you to make a really strong painting as far as I'm concerned. Do you want to talk about this one at all and the colors you used and
Mhm.
how you
I Yeah,
saw
this one was up in Frederick County somewhere at a gracious woman's farm.
Mary Miller? Yeah.
Yeah, and I know what's hard in painting animals is they keep moving, especially when you paint plein air and you do it all on site. Um, I just the thing about horses is their tails. I love, they just you got to get that flick of the brush when they when they move. And I just remember the light hitting by their nose, and you just try to fill in things that you think would work and see where the light hits the background and the sun comes in. But yeah, I love painting animals.
But talk about the
Horses especially. I just don't get out to a horse farm very often.
yeah, talk about these patches of color that you paint.
Well, the we know that like yellows and violets complement each other, and the greens and the violets, vibrate against each other. So I like purposefully put colors that vibrate against each other next to each other, even though, you know, um, the common eye might not see them that way. But a lot of times I do see them that way. Like the fence is, it's a gray split rail fence, but I don't know, I just saw it pink,
Yeah.
pink and violet against the green grass. And yeah, that white horse was stunning. And sometimes you just see the shadows in a color. I mean, sometimes you have to take out the black paint and the browns and just use color.
Mhm. Is
That'll make if you limit your palette to what you're using, like take out, I mean, I do like using burnt umber, but take out some of those colors that will dull a painting down. And I think that's what makes my paintings work for being colorful.
and what's your palette? What colors do you use?
I mean, I usually do try to use like a warm and cool of the color wheel, but there's always white. And I like using the teal colors, a mixture of the blue and green. And I always have ultramarine blue and yellow, and a cadmium red light. Even though I'm sure there was cadmium red medium on my palette, doesn't look like I see it in there. But I love crimson, alizarin crimson. I use that all the time. Like, you can mix it with so many things and make so many colors.
The freshness of this is really what I get from the painting as well. I mean, it's a moment that's moving, but it's when I say freshness, not only is it in the paint, but it's in the thought, meaning that we feel it so naturally. And I think that you handle this so well, and we read it well. I think that anyone who probably doesn't see these colors will agree that the painting actually works. And that's one of the unique things that I think you understand about color and can bring to your students, which I think is something that needs to be taught sometimes. I think there are a lot of people that I just gave a lecture on color, and one of my students submitted a painting, and there was no color in it. I said to her, of course, I just gave a lecture on color. How could she miss that? So when I asked her, for instance, a white object is going to have all the colors of the spectrum in it, and I think this painting has all the colors of the spectrum. All right, because that's the way light works. It's full of those colors, and and it makes those colors be seen. Okay, essentially light. But in her case, she still didn't see color. So I really got a job ahead of me to try and get her to understand that there's something that she's not thinking about. All right, and when she wrote back to me, she never mentioned color at all. When and I thought, well, that's the reason. You have to think it, and I think that's one of the keys to your work. You really have a good control of color. Was there anything in you learning to work with color that you can pass on to someone?
I just know that people always think of highlights or light as white, and white really dulls a color down in a lot of
Mhm.
situations. But like in this instance, I use like a orange or orange yellow to be the warmth of the light hitting the horse on the rump and on his neck. And um, I think that made it pop
Yeah, I'm so
more.
impressed with this painting. Is there anything else you want to say about this one that you can remember, or after you did it, you might comment about?
Um, I know those horses weren't in that location very long, and they weren't, I think they were at different, you paint a horse that's over there and you paint another horse that's over there and you bring them together,
Yeah.
So painting plein air, I do tell students they need to paint quickly and just to try to get the main feel of the painting. Um, I do feel, students want to paint things accurately, and to me, it's not as important. I just want to get the impression of the object or the animal
Mhm.
there. So um, it's fun and interesting to look at, and there's three horses there. There was more there than that, but it kind of has a big, medium, and small,
Yeah.
like it travels your eye back and forth like a triangle.
And you can see your design sense here, because these animals weren't there at the same time,
Hmm.
and you had to put the idea together. So this one worked out beautifully. The next one is another one that I'm incredibly impressed by. It's really the camouflaging of the figure, where we just feel it in that space. A lot of people wouldn't make a connection between that figure and the background. You were able to do that with the color, but really the design, the feeling, the touch of the paint, the layering, all these are important elements to an outstanding artist's work. And I think you have a command of that. So is there something you want to say about this one?
Um, this is another one done at the canal. I spent a lot of time by the Potomac rivers. Just I walked there with my dogs, and I met this guy on the horse, and he let me take a couple photos, but I did come home right away and paint it because I was inspired. And people have told me, he is kind of hiding, like you don't see him right away, but it makes it fun,
Yeah, he's
to
not
look
on
at, kind of like Find Waldo, I guess. But
well.
on this one, I did paint a gouache first. A lot of times I'll do a watercolor sketch or a gouache
Mhm.
painting, um, just to get my colors sorted out and smaller. And then I did another painting from the gouache.
Yeah, what's interesting about this one is it feels like it was painted on location at the moment that it happened. And one of the unique things for me is where you did place that figure, because far too often we'll think about that figure being on the path, and it's interesting how it's off the path. And the path leads us down, and the figure is part of the landscape. But of course, it is about the figure and the horse. Well, after we discover that those two together. I really think you got a really good one here. Do you want to speak about your design sense at all?
Well, I know you always need to lead into where you want to go in a painting. This one, it's a road. It's the viewer is looking on the trail, and you know, um, and I love the shadowing of the trees and everything. And I think I was again, I love painting trees. The tree trunk should not, to me, they shouldn't be the same color. They need to be different colors. Each section has the light's going to hit it differently.
Mhm.
So, this one's a lot about light, I think, and how it bounces around and
Yeah, but
nature.
it's that immediacy, and whether you're painting from life like the two horses that we just saw, or this one, they seem to be painted from life, even if you do use a reference like a photo. I feel this is one of the things that's unique about your work and your understanding. One of the things for everybody to understand, this is very, very sophisticated. This is not something that's easily experienced, and I think that you stand out. I mean, honestly, I have an outstanding group of instructors, but no one in the group is as much a colorist as you are. And I think that's one of the things, if people are going to study with you, they're going to get this. They're going to get a real connection to color and the power of color, but also your good sense of design. That may have come from the fact that you were working in the film industry for as long as you were, because I think that this is another thing that speaks in your work: scale relationships, as far as how big the horse and the figure is to the trees. I think is really interesting. We really feel the age of those trees, but also the dynamic of the a repetition of the diagonals, which I think really are strong elements. So you got a beauty here. All right. And I love it. So then the next one, this is another one that I think everybody loves. All right. Uh, God, so natural, so immediate, wonderfully handled, modeled. When you talk in terms of value, this is one of the things I can say about you and your work. But the other thing is that this really speaks of, to a certain extent, Newton's theory on color and how light changes in color based upon how close it is to the light source. And we see all the colors of the spectrum again in this particular piece. I'm just so impressed with this one, design wise. Do you want to say anything that share about this?
I just did this one for fun. I do paint animals. I sell a lot of pet portraits. And this one, I was at a lady's house and her cat just walked across the room, and it was this gorgeous furry creature. It was just beautiful. And it's a gray cat. It's a gray and white cat. And I just took several pictures. But again, I just came home and painted it right away because I loved it so much. And I had painted something, and these were the colors on my palette, and I just used them. So, I guess I want to teach people too that, just because you have something gray, a gray cat, it doesn't have to be gray.
Right.
There's the value tells you, the value of the color tells you the shape of the object or the person or the animal. But this was a lot of fun to paint. It was real quick. And
I see you here particularly using color spatially. I mean, it's really interesting how you develop the foreground and the head and how we look from left to right. But at the same time, the dimension that you bring to the work, the eye is so accurate, and that's all we need. The rest can be soft and furry. It really is quite beautiful.
That's actually something my aunt Mary was always. I painted with her a lot as a young adult. We did more crafty type painting, but she always told me, she said, if you get that eye right, doesn't matter what else everything else is. People look at that eye and they everything else flows from there. You need some focal point with any painting.
No, and this is a beauty. And for the new, anybody who's new to your work, all you have to do is look at some of these color combinations around the paw where she puts that really shadowed of the blue. One of the keys to Holly's work, I think, is also seeing that shadows have vibrant color in them. And so she really communicated that well here. All right. So then this one, this is a little different. This isn't as full color palette as what we've seen up to this point, or at least, the dynamics of color. This is a much more formalistic one where you really build the distance and the values become real important. You want to speak to this one?
Yeah, I thought I should throw in something that isn't all about color. And this was my brother Trace took a trip to Banff this past winter, and he shared some photos with me. And yeah, I just painted mountains and trees and tried to get a cold feeling to it with a cool palette. And it was he liked it. So I'm
Yeah.
was very happy with it.
Oh, it reads beautifully, and I think when we look at the feeling of the temperature and the distance, things like that, I think really caught up in the way the light works as far as value is concerned very strongly. And this is one of the things for everybody to recognize. As a colorist, you still have to get your values right. So you're really good at that as well. Okay, so then the next one, this might be one of your favorite subjects because I've seen you paint it more than
Yeah.
once.
This was, I mean, I painted this before all the, a lot of people are painting sunflowers now, but I painted this a while ago. And I believe this got an honorable mention from David Sharp in the Friends of the Yellow Barn show. I painted this before I started teaching for Yellow Barn. And I remember David said, Holly knows how to use paint. So it's all about the paint in
Mhm.
this one. And I tried to use bigger brushes, and I think it's 36 inches or more. It's a bigger painting.
Yeah. It's a really good one, and I think it shows your ability to build distance as far as change of size is concerned, and the nature of the way you design things. The colors work really well. The feeling, again, one of the strengths of your work is its feeling, and I just feel compelled to really look at this painting from the standpoint that it feels natural. And truthfully, the colors somewhat go beyond, like Wolf Kahn, the nature of describing nature as naturally as this, though you're seeing it, or you at least have also the knowledge to use those colors and use them well. It's a good piece. The next one.
I just put this in as a still life since I teach in the studio. I thought I should show a still life, and the greens and violets I like in this, how they vibrate together. And I enjoy painting flowers a lot, and thought I would experiment with painting white roses. And
Again, it's you can see the feeling in your work. I mean, you mentioned, I believe, uh, you know, you said something about soutine, right? You brought,
right.
you know, and this has that kind of rhythm that you see in a soutine, but yet at the same time, it kind of feels a little Manet-like. And I mean, there's a lot of different artists that we can kind of feel in your work. Is there any particular artist that now you look at and say, okay, they're big, really strong influences on your work?
Oh, right now I got so much out of the Joan Mitchell show in Baltimore this past year. I mean, how she expressively um makes her marks with flowers and landscape, and the colors she uses. She uses very primary, um colorful palettes, and I love her work. And I've always loved de Kooning's work because of his marks too. And I do have a couple paintings I did in college that I know were influenced by him and Elaine de Kooning. So
Yes, beautifully expressive in its not only composition but color handling, and then also the paint. I think this is one of the things that when we read this, there are a lot of little elements in this painting, like the small horse figure that's there, and it just integrates itself so beautifully to the design of the painting. Again, one of these really beauties. This one, I was there that weekend that you painted this. And
yeah.
I will truthfully say, I was so blown away, right, because of the fact that it was so much color that you had seen. When you brought this painting in for the critique that we were having, I kept saying to myself, who would see these colors? I don't think anybody, would see them like you. All right. So, any story behind this one?
um that's Monocacy Battlefield, and I know we were supposed to all meet somewhere, but we couldn't find
Yeah, we got lost.
where you were. And I thought, I'm going to paint a cannon. So I just really, I don't know. I thought it was interesting to paint this cannon,
Yeah, no, it's a,
and it was it was a
yeah, black and
black
brown.
model cannon, like a replica. So, and it was I don't know if there was a lot of color that day. I'm not real sure. It
No,
was the winter.
it was a gray day.
Yeah. So sometimes when I try to disregard the type of day and just paint, there's times when sunlight comes out no matter what kind of day it is, and
Mhm.
you just have to remember those little spots where the light hit when the sun does come out, and then
Yeah,
that can change your painting so much.
yeah, but the fact that you could see so much color in such a bland object, just and truthfully, you were talking about some of the ones are have a photo reference, but this one you painted on location. So I
Yeah,
mean,
that's all plein air.
and it reads just like the other ones. I mean, you're able to bring this knowledge of how you use color to all your paintings, and there's a connection between them. No matter how you seem to create the image, there's still this dynamic color palette that you use, and how you use it to express sunlight. So I think that went well. And then I was with you in Santorini when we were there. We both painted this scene. Um, Anything about this one?
Well, this was, I think, kind of a breakthrough painting for me, and I appreciate the time you spent doing a demo. um I don't know if it was this exact
Yeah,
scene
it
or
was.
across the way, but um I think this is when I realized to scrape away paintings.
Mhm.
And I have you to thank for that. I'm sure I would have um learned different techniques down the way, and I know I scraped my paintings in college too, but I don't know, it all just came together. This was a couple, maybe 2 or 3 years ago now. We painted in Santorini, and I just really enjoyed painting this church
Yeah,
and experimenting.
and I remember that day too well, and remember this painting. So, um, it's great to visit it again. All right, and then this one, which you did of Harry, which
Yeah, this is
again.
all plein air also. This I did at Kensington Labor Day show. I got an honorable mention. And Harry was seated outside of an antique store, and they brought out some, props with him. And so I painted that on site, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and when we look at artists like Bonnard and his figure work, there's a certain kind of connection to those impressionist and post-impressionist and Nobby. I honestly feel, you can paint horses, you can paint flowers, and you can paint figures. I mean, you have the ability to paint whatever you want, and you draw well. And I think that that's another element as well. I believe this is our last one. There might be one more after this, but can you speak to this one?
Yeah, this I did at the plein air event in Ellicott City, Paint It. It's the annual, plein air week. And this got an honorable mention. And I just situated myself kind of on top of a hill looking down and painted rooftops. So I
Yeah.
guess that would have been Cezanne's influence. And taking classes, and I just thought I'd go for it. And here, I remember the judge said something about this looking festive. And
Mhm.
it is like when you look in a room full, it was in a gallery with a lot of paintings, and it, when it's against a lot of other works, you would go to this because it has a lot of color and it looks festive.
Right. There's a lot of energy in it. I will say this, when we look at your work, you know, uh, you can see how it commands attention. All right. And I think that you being successful with your awards and that is a good indication that your work has that kind of effect on people. I feel that, if anything, students that study with you are really going to learn a lot. I mean, this is one of the things, just by even seeing how you work. But your work is very clear, and I think, if anything, easily understood. So I believe that the students will learn quickly when they study with you. All right, this is the last one, I believe.
Yeah, that is,
I'm not so sure, but I think so. All right.
yeah, I probably gave you more than.
Yeah.
um, this is a winery out in California, Sonoma Valley, and no, it was just that it's a large painting. I know it was at least 3 feet wide,
Mhm.
and I always wanted to paint a winery, and it had olive trees. It reminded me of Italy a little bit, and somebody bought it right away, so it was a good thing.
Yeah, no, you have a great market for your work, that's for sure. I mean, I have one of yours in my house, and truthfully, enjoy it every day. And I know my wife, especially, it really spoke to her. She had to have it. So I think this is the quality of your work, and I think, anyone that's interested in, collecting your work, it's a good idea as far as I'm concerned, right? Because Holly has such a unique way of seeing things. All right, so that's a lot about you, and your work speaks for itself. I think that when we look at artists and we look at what they create, you have your real unique vision and unique style, and we know your work when we see it. All right. So I think that this is one of the reasons as well that I've hired you, is because you stand out as being really, someone who's uh, got an understanding, uh, that I think everyone that takes classes at the Yellow Barn, uh, would learn from you. So I think that this is one of the things that I can say, I'm really happy that you're part of our faculty. Is there anything else you want to say before we end this interview?
No, just thank you for the opportunity. I love the Yellow Barn studio, and all the teachers are really fantastic. We all learn from each other, and I feel like students learn from each other. So that's one thing good about working together, plein air or in the studio. Um, we look at each other's work, and we all learn from each other,
Yeah.
and you never stop growing and asking questions about art and,
And,
things you
and
want to accomplish.
and you paint with your students essentially, so they get to
Yeah.
see what you're doing. You're just not telling them what to do, but you show them and experience the problems that they're working with too. So what I'm going to say to everybody that's watching this video tonight, truthfully, Holly is an outstanding instructor. All right, a very talented person, unique in a lot of ways, particularly color. And I would highly recommend that you consider taking one of her classes or one of her workshops when she offers them. You can go to the yellowbarnstudio.com to find her classes. You have a website, right?
Yeah. HollyBuehler.com,
Yeah.
Buehler.
Yep.
And Instagram is Holly Buehler Art.
Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, look her up and follow her. And our classes are now enrolling. So you want to go online, go to yellowbarnstudio.com if you're interested, and sign up for the coming term. Holly, I want to thank you so much for what you did tonight with explaining your work and how you work with students. And I want to thank you again. So um, with that, folks, I'm going to say good night. And Holly, do you have anything else before we?
Well, thank you, Walt. Thank you for inspiring students and um, helping us all grow as artists. And I really I love art. I'm passionate about painting, and I hope other students will enjoy it with me or with any of the instructors really at the Yellow Barn.
Well, with that, I want to say good night to everyone and hope to see you again.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.